Okay.
Ian, you want to repeat that?
Oh yeah, just thinking about this comic that we've read. What even would we recommend to people who liked this book? Like, I was just thinking about that now. Like,
Well,
I mean, it's a great read. Oh, what's an easy one?
The easy one is his other works.
Sabrina. Yeah.
That's what I was gonna do.
Yeah. Yeah.
But now I feel like if I do that, people will know. That's because I didn't really think about this until you brought it up. So, so in the course of this podcast, I will be 75% here, 25% just racking my brain
for another piece of media.
For another piece of media.
Okay.
To you, the listener.
But hey, listeners, see if you can catch it. See if you can catch when he's drifting off and thinking, "No, not that one."
Oh, dude, I wonder. That if people actually watch this, I'm sure people would tell me all the time about my tales.
Just that drift, yeah. But
around a lot. Someone's gonna try to diagnose me. That's gonna be one of the big things.
They do that with musicians all the time. Like an album comes out and then they psychoanalyze.
Yeah.
Just let Slim Shady do his thing, guys. I don't know why I thought it was him. I don't.
It's like people try and figure out Slayer, right? And then
oh yeah.
I mean, if I had to do it, my guess would be they were a couple of dudes into World War II and true crime documentaries. I don't think that's actually that different from
Most
a lot
people.
of older dudes.
Yeah.
That's my guess. I could be wrong.
Oh.
And that's how to protect yourself, people.
That's right,
folks. You tell them you're gonna be wrong. Anyway, speaking of facades.
Oh, love that!
Really talking.
Oh, wow, you really work for that one, Chris. I respect it.
I reached that. I'm the Shannon Sharp of transitions.
Let's go, Skip.
Nick,
oh my god!
I hate to do this to you, dude. I've seen some clips of his interviews now because someone brought him up in the video I was watching.
Oh,
I mean, I listen. Nothing to say at all about who he is, or his football career. I am just strictly speaking as someone who has watched a bunch of interviews and interviewers. I don't think he's that good, Nick.
Yeah, I don't think so either. Like
actually, I would argue he might be really bad
as an interviewer. Yeah. I think because even then, like the whole premise is that you're just hanging out with him.
Yes. Yeah, and
it's not
even
an interview.
But that kind of goes away when he's trying.
Oh, I see what you mean. Yeah.
You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah.
Well, there are a handful of the interviews that I've seen on Club Shay. Is that's the show?
I think it is.
Right?
Club Shay, yeah.
Club Shay.
There's times where you do feel like, oh man, I'm seeing him feel out of control, and that makes me feel like it's really off the oh, he's freaking out. You can't be the host and be like, fuck shit.
Yeah. Or he's doing that thing where oh yeah, he's not listening anymore. He's waiting to say his next question.
Yes.
As opposed
where
to
it just no natural segue or response to, especially because I've at least seen 2 interviews where someone said something kind of deep or at least intimate, maybe a little revealing and vulnerable, and then he just starts asking another question. It's like, man, you can't just cool, you have that relationship with your mom. Anyway, tell me about your
anyway, tell me about this new business you're opening.
Yeah.
Okay, so one exception to this though is unless he's talking about sports, because he knows.
He's brilliant.
Well. He's great.
He knows where to.
However, that does not mean he's good at interviewing other subjects for topics.
No,
I think if you want the full range of his interviewing skills, you watch the Michael Vick one.
Yeah. Oh,
he interviewed Michael.
Michael Vick. Yeah.
Oh yeah.
I did not know.
If you what you got again, all your points are completely true. I feel like both ends are the most with Michael Vick.
You want to watch a roller coaster?
Oh.
Okay, I'm drinking my drink because I am tired, and woke up early. We're recording this for anyone who wants to do the timeline. I'm recording this after doing that 6-hour stream of Elden Ring where I fought Bale, so it's that one. It's the morning after. I thought I would sleep, did not. I did, but not that long. My dog woke us up early.
I'm so sorry.
Hopefully. It's okay. He's just being a little diva. Nick fed him. And then
wasn't enough.
Wasn't enough for that thing. And now he's fine.
No,
he's sleeping.
More. Oh my god.
Sleeping now. He's tired. He tired himself out.
Oh my goodness.
Anyway, love that little guy. Jesus. He's so old. He's so old, Ian.
He's older than 15, I think, right?
He's around, we're guessing 15. We think he's around 15. There's 15. No way to know for sure. We've heard too many different sources.
He wasn't a puppy when I met him, when you got him, I don't think.
He was already full grown.
Yeah.
We did the right thing and adopted an older dog.
Because you know what, folks?
No he's got at me for that.
Also in your defense, not only did you do the right thing, you got almost 2 decades of a relationship with a wonderful pet. You know,
so maybe he was a puppy and we just didn't know, but he didn't look like one when we got him. So.
He could have been one. Those smaller dogs.
It was probably
yeah.
Although they told us he was already whatever. Yeah. Anyway, the book is Acting Class by Nick Drnaso. As we'll be talking about today. This one was suggested very much by Nick for a little bit, and we finally found time to do it. And I gotta say, I'm glad I read it.
Same.
Yay!
So, having said that, Nick, I now relinquish my hosting duties to you.
Oh no!
Go for it.
Yo!
Oh shit. Okay. As a host, it's important we stay on track with certain things.
Sure.
But there's definitely opportunities to explore certain smaller scenes or things as we walk through it. Right.
Okay. Definitely.
The ending. No, I'm just kidding.
I want to say, Nick, you're already at the 10-minute mark. I just wanted to let you know.
Really?
Oh.
Well, you're about to hit it.
Chris.
Sick.
I'm not.
This is Nick. This was no judgment. I just realized, hey, he doesn't know what the timing of the recording is when he's looking at this.
Okay.
But I'm just trying to help. So I will just sometimes say how long we've been recording this podcast. As such my diligent duty. But you are the host, so please.
No, I don't like this bit. This is too much pressure.
Well, let me ask you this.
Yeah, we had that long talk off camera, and you want to tell me?
I've got a question for Nick when we start off, because we're keeping to the format of what we knew before. Nick, I know that you had read some of the author's work beforehand. My understanding of it, honestly, was mostly you recommending his work and Zadie Smith saying that Sabrina was the best novel of the year 2018.
Zadie Smith.
She's an African American novelist. She's written a book called
I should read more.
The Glowing of the Sun, or The Yellow of the Sun, something like that. Hold on.
That sounds super familiar. Oh no, took away my camera. There we go.
Hold on, here we go. She does White Teeth. She does The Embassy of Cambodia, Swing Time, On Beauty. She's
I know
she's
who
written.
This is. Never mind.
She was quoted as saying. She was quoted as saying that Sabrina was the best novel the year that it came. Best novel, full stop, the year it came out. So the bar is high, in my opinion. Zadie Smith's a talented writer. So
you know what? I'll say this. Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Nick.
No, say on top of that, you had the fact that it was the first non novel to make it to the Booker's.
Yeah, that I remember.
Listing. Yeah,
because we were talking about that when I read it.
Mm-hmm.
I might agree with her, but to be fair, I do not nearly read on the level anymore, like enough to say like what's the novelty here.
Right. I'm not reading novels as they release. Like,
yeah,
I'll read
that would drive me crazy. I don't think I could do it.
I think I get 2 of the novels that come out that year, and then everything else is in the pile, man. Sorry,
I'm too busy trying to catch up on shit people have been telling me about.
Exactly.
For like decades now. So,
Mm.
Yeah, it's. Here's what I will say though about Sabrina. Sabrina's I think my favorite book written by him. Granted, I had only read 2 at that point.
Okay.
But Sabrina was the numero uno. I just like everything about it. So bars were high going in. You're right, Ian.
Yeah,
I am with you on that. With like it's a lot because his past 2, he was batting 100 for me. 10 out of 10s. Wouldn't change a thing, really.
Yeah. So that was really all I had coming into this experience. But I know, Nick, you had also read both Beverly and Sabrina, I think, already. So you'd had all that experience coming into it.
Yeah, and I feel like to set this all up in terms of the reason like I wanted to recommend this, I feel like the same reason for recommending Skinamarink. I think it was just like the initial emotion after reading it or after experiencing it that put me in a state, or like I was left in a state so specific and like interesting. I thought it was like worth kind of sharing. So where Skinamarink was, I felt like a kid watching a horror movie for the first time by accident.
Yeah.
Right.
And acting class felt like I was a part of something. I was a part of like a spiral I couldn't help. Like reading it. Where I felt like
go ahead.
Where I felt like I was watching essentially I was like experiencing seeing people kind of unravel, yeah. And that's what I like about his work is like you're really forced to like be with these people.
Yeah.
Well, that's the interesting thing is that you're not. You're not forced. You can stop reading.
No, I mean like
but it's so captivating. He does such a good job at captivating you that you want to see this. And there's that weird, which is something we'll get into with this book, voyeuristic quality to this, where you're watching pain. You're watching. You're in some form. I don't want to say you're a sadist at some point, but like there is a moment where there are moments where you're like, this is a lot. I don't have to do this. Like I don't have to read this. Like
there are moments in the novel, I think, even just as someone empathizing with the characters in the class going through what they're going through, where like I had several metatextual moments where I'm like, oh, I feel like the book is drawing attention to the idea of conflict leads to interesting stories, and so these people are digging deeper into the conflicts or creating them, and we'll talk more about that as well.
Problems.
Yeah.
Nick, that's not to. It's a testament to his writing, to his storytelling, that he can make you do that.
Well, Nick, I also wanted to ask you about the style that we see in this, and whether you feel like that's consistent. Just because I don't have the point of reference of the other books that he's written, we're very much on the outside experiencing this. We don't have the kind of regular literary quality that you get in some books where you get the internal, you get motivation. We're only able to read expression and judge based on what they say and do. And that's really all we get as far as trying to understand these characters in the space. It's really interesting. What do you guys think about? Is that consistent, or what do you guys think?
You want to say something, Nick? Because I'm gonna say something that might change things up here.
I was gonna say like that actually pretty much helps set up the first scene because
with that, Nick, I thank you as we can move into the climax because I was really scared we were just skipping over that. But that was our rising action, everything we knew. This is the climax, so let's get into that first scene. Nick, do you want to take it away then? Seems like you got something to say.
Well, I was gonna say, like, in terms of like a first scene, already, like right off the bat, it is. Well, believe it or not, in my opinion, like out of all his work, it's already the most lively.
Oh, really?
In that there's like, even though there's a back and forth with characters, you have a first scene of what at first seems like two people meeting for the first time.
Yeah.
At a local, like at a bar.
Yeah.
And then it slowly starts to become apparent that they're role playing something.
Yeah.
And you try to and then you get sorry.
Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
I was gonna say like the bigger picture thing with that because it's that, and then it becomes then you see the state. You start to get an implication of like their state of their relationship and everything. But
yeah.
Do you remember how that scene breaks down? Like who stops the pretend? I guess I would call it.
I believe it's the wife who's just kind of like done with the make pretend.
She's trying to break the scene, and he is sticking with it.
Yes.
For like a good time.
Yeah.
Before she calls this ridiculous and like is goofy versus him trying to want to try new things and make things. It's very much I don't know why it's very Ernest Hemingway. Like it reminds me of that. Where he and this makes a lot more sense if you read like a lot more short stories. How this goes is like you start the scene as late as you can. Well, that's not just short stories, but I mean like, and then you're kind of like peeling back and like discovering more and more of the iceberg that's been written. Ernest Hemingway has a very famous story. I wish I remembered the name. Where
The Hills Like White Elephants.
I think so. Is that the one about the abortion?
Yeah.
It's a very long time before you realize, they're talking about an abortion. That they might get. Like for that, which doesn't sound like it's a heavy subject, but doesn't sound too groundbreaking at the time for us. But at the time, like no one's fucking writing about that.
No,
that was actually a big deal. Like, and to write it in such a way where just a regular couple's having that talk.
I mean, that's coming out just before the Second World War, I think.
Yeah.
When that's published, like this is coming after having been an ambulance driver for World War I in France.
Yeah.
So. I mean, very much taboo breaking in that way. What do you get? Well, let me ask you this actually to tie it back to acting class.
Yeah,
I do feel like there were moments where maybe not broken taboos, but like they were the writers pushing my buttons to try and like get a response out of me. With some of the things that happen in this story.
You have a specific example?
I'm thinking just generally of the plot and the development of the character of Thomas, the life model. Yes, Jesus Christ. Well, because and I don't want to go out of order, but like there's lots of things that there's a chain of decisions that seem to happen that take Thomas from being a relatively well-adjusted, seemingly happy person to very unhappy, very distrustful, very anxious. And he genuinely starts to believe really terrible things are true about himself.
Yeah.
Based on nothing. On nothing at all. Yeah.
To the point where you're like, maybe they were. Like maybe they were there the entire time
because
it had to come from somewhere.
Yeah,
type deal. But
yeah,
it's an interesting. Yeah, we'll get to that. I want to talk about the second chapter real quick before we move on to, because those are like the first two really are kind of the preliminary before like the main setup for the whole thing, which is with Beth and the old lady.
Beth, Gloria.
Beth and Gloria. The second one, so Nick, you said like the first one's a good kind of like microcosm for what this entire book is like. I would argue the second chapter is a little bit of that, but also very much like sort of like this weird, I'm going to use the word microcosm again, of Nick Drnaso's work. Where you dive deep into this character's like thoughts and emotions, and you're seeing panel by panel different moments where these thoughts are happening, very and trying to follow that emotion. And very simplified drawings. We never talked about the art styles, but we'll get to it in a second. Let me just finish this. Where you're following these thoughts, and it's kind of beautiful. There's pain in there. There's a small darkness, but in that darkness is a light. There's something. From that darkness is born a light, which is kind of this beauty she sees in her child, and being this kid's mom, and how much that has changed her, and kind of like that she actually really likes it. She likes doing it despite like things going against her, right?
Right.
With the little twist of hoping everything's gonna be all right, and then the child like saying he can see things like in a corner. Who's that person talking in a corner? Giving you that like sinking feeling of, oh, the child's not gonna. Not that he's going to be mentally unwell, but it is not going to be a normal upbringing.
He's got rough stuff, and I'm so glad I'm glad that you drew attention to that, because like we both worked with children at some point in our
you definitely have more experience than I do, though.
When I was watching that, like I was reading that scene, and I was like trying to pathologize to some degree, like, okay, what is this? Because whatever it is, it could just be like a general anxiety. Like that's the thing about this work that I think is fascinating, is the writer is providing you with responses, but you're not always seeing the antecedent of why is this child so frightened?
Yeah.
Like, oh wait, is that opening scene? Is that the one where we actually see something, or is that later?
That's later.
That's late. Okay.
Right, you don't see anything that second chapter, Nick?
Not that I remember. No.
I remember the couch being empty.
Because we come back to that in the last acting class. I think that's what it is, right? Yeah. Got it. Because that was a deeply troubling, a very upsetting image that he drew.
So like, and he's really good at like giving you one of the consequences, not the consequences of something happening to a child. It's weird horror in that way, and it makes it feel real. If I can call it horror, but like it's that what makes it feel real is that you're gonna get these moments with people in like real life that obviously come from something.
Yeah.
But you don't know what, because you didn't grow up as them or with them, or weren't there when the traumatic, quote unquote, traumatic effect like happened. We don't know what it is. It could even just be that's just how their brain is wired.
It could be this kid. It could be. I mean, some kids. He's 3, so like a part of me was like, well, I mean, whatever happened with the dad, we don't know exactly, but it was pretty bad.
But he's gone.
Whatever it was, he's gone.
Dad's gone. Not
mom
mentioned by the mom. Like
does not want to speak about it. Yeah. So
like so far much that she never introduces herself as a single mother. She never like
no
goes about or anything. She just, hey, this is me and my kid, and everyone's cool with that. Because the answer isn't gonna be fun.
Probably not.
Even if you're lucky.
Yeah.
right?
Like, the less troubling answer is he's dead. He died. There was an or something like that. And then everything else is more troubling. And I mean, there's endless things you could think.
Yeah.
Oh, is the case. Yeah.
The selfish part of that, and it's gonna sound real selfish, but I mean, like, it is very real. Where you're wondering, do I have to worry?
Mm-hmm.
Do I have to worry that someone else's part is going to be a problem that I don't know who they are, right?
We're talking about mom's concern about the little boy.
No. I mean people interacting with, like, if you talk to a single person, like a single mother, single father. Do I have to worry that this guy or whoever was the partner is gonna be an issue in my life?
Yeah.
Are they gonna show up to the class? Are they gonna show up to the thing? Stuff like that. And it is a very selfish thing, but it is something that's a real concern. Like you come up with. And again, like that's the thing of, like, it's that glimpse into something that could imply that has darker implications. You just don't know.
Yeah.
You don't know.
Yeah.
And you don't ask the question because, like we said, the best case scenario is he's dead.
Yeah.
And that's really weird to think about when
okay, unless we have more to say about that second scene, I really want to ask you guys about the first acting class, which is I think the third scene of this.
Hang on, can I, before we move on, I just popped in the thing in my head. I don't know if I want this to become that kind of podcast. You know what? I'm gonna ask the question. You tell me, like, let's just move on to the book or not. Is it worse? What's worse, the other person's dead in the single parent relationship, or they are divorced and they have another family and things are good on both ends, but that they still had a messy divorce? Because divorce is just like, yep, we're done, or at least not till you're way older, right? Like, that usually only happens if the two people who are married are old, and it really is just like, we move on.
I'd say that in that situation, there's still going to be, like, work to do, especially when your children become.
There's always going to be work to do.
Like, more complicated people. Like, I think even if you were like a really cool Arnold Schwarzenegger divorced dad, there's probably still going to be a conversation of, well, why not my house? It's not even thinking about it in the context of what, you left mom. It's, why not me? I think that's very natural for a child.
Yeah, why did they have to start a new family? Was I not, like, enough? Right?
Yeah.
Anyway, that's a whole nother can of worms. But Nick, you wanted to talk about the next scene. Oh, sorry.
Oh, I think Nick had a thought. You wanted to throw in?
Oh no, I was gonna ask, like, after we introduce the single mom, then we get to her friend Angel.
And, the dark-haired girl,
where she refuses to leave the party.
Yes, and I, again, because of my work, was like, okay, she might be, like, on the spectrum or something. Like, I don't know if she's not reading social cues at all in this.
Maybe she is. I mean, to some degree, we all are. But she is. She doesn't read social cues. She seems to be a little socially awkward.
Yeah.
And is kind of desperate for friends, right? To connect with people.
Yeah.
But Nick, she is not the friend of the single mother. She's the friend of the married.
Right, married one.
The wife.
Because the husband and wife talk about it's 4 a.m.
Yes,
we need to get rid of them.
They met at their job. The wife
at the job. Yeah.
For the dolls and all that. Another interesting thing. Anyway. Yeah. So that party, which is a very real situation that we've all been in.
Yes.
At some point, I will not name names, but it has happened. I have been that to some degree, and I've gotten better at it. But usually not the last person anymore.
Okay. Yeah.
But it's or the thing of like, hey, oh man, that line of like, hey, you need anything, or like, and she's like, no, you've done so much, I'm comfortable. I'm just gonna kind of sit here.
Oh man, yeah.
I will say that's one thing I appreciate of our friend group is we will just go, okay, you gotta fucking leave.
It's time.
I gotta clean up and like shit's late. Uh, or I
ain't your mom. Yeah, exactly. Yes, so we meet Angel, and she's interesting in the comic just because she, I think, takes to the group the fastest straight away, if I remember correctly.
Instantly.
Yeah, she's able to immediately click into this, and you know, well, here we'll do it a little bit out of order, but just to talk about the character of Angel, like she essentially builds a second life for herself in this fantasy is my understanding. Like, and then I want to ask you guys, so is that other person real? Because John talks to them, and
yeah, that is true. Oh, but you know what? That could have been, they were in part of the scene. That could have been him going, oh, she's well, he knows, John knows what he's doing.
John's really, and we're getting to him. We're getting to him. But,
as we find out. So I think he is just playing along. She doesn't exist.
Okay.
I think I think the whole point is she does not exist.
And that essentially if she has created for herself this entire... She has
created a best friend she can meet at any point.
Yeah.
In random places around the city.
Yeah, exactly.
It's almost like a sitcom. It's almost like a Sex and the City type deal.
She's like Walter White in the desert having like she's a excuse me, she's becoming that person when she bumps into the guy when the guy going around looking for food donations. Is that it?
No, I view that. So that scene, I think she's in it because they talk about how she seemed out of it, and then of course the next scene is she has no memory of what she did the past like week, or something, past few days. Doesn't remember talking to him, so I think she's already in it. And when she's talking to him for the donations, she is kind of just playing it very aloof and cool and on like, oh yeah, man, no big deal. Here you go. Yeah.
Here's $98. Yeah.
That's cool. Cool. Yeah. All right, I gotta take off. But yeah, man, yeah. And then walk. I'm like exaggerating, but we all know that guy. So like, shoot. 1 second, everybody.
No worries.
Hang on. We're gonna do a quick pause on the recording.
Okay.
And we will be back. So that's 33 minutes.
All
right, we're back. False alarm. Sorry about that, you guys.
Yeah. No worries, man.
Cool. So you're in the momentum.
I was just gonna ask. Well, I wanted to start with Nick to see his thoughts on scene 3, where we're getting our first look at acting class. Just that take, kind of your take on the scene, but I'm so fascinated by John Smith. Probably not his real name.
So let's talk about scene 3.
Yeah. Okay.
And then I'm gonna propose something real quick, just because I am looking at the time for the recording.
Okay.
So go ahead. Sorry, interrupt. Oh, what do you want to ask about scene 3 again?
Oh, I mean, well, so what are we thinking in that scene that stood out, I guess? And really, it's just our introduction to John Smith, who is, I think, ostensibly the villain of our piece. As much as there is one.
Like a good director. He's just kind of planting seeds.
And I can't tell how malignant he is and how early on he is. So, like, in the first scene where he makes them do a party together, he gives, I forget which member of the group he tells, you're a narcissist and a thief. And
it's the model. What's his name?
Oh, okay, yeah, it's Thomas.
With the ponytail. Thomas, yeah.
Yeah. And like, yeah, so I guess Thomas's storyline clearly like gripped me because he set Thomas up for failure, I think, very early on.
Yeah, well, he does it right too. It's both because it's under the implication, I'm going to give you a tougher role.
Yeah,
give you a tougher role, and you're gonna you're a liar and a thief. Oh, and the way he directs is that, like, that's who you are. Not versus the character you're playing. It's you're a liar, you're a thief, to kind of like get the person really in that mindset.
Yeah.
Of course, these are people with like no acting experience at all, except Thomas, who seems like to have only acting experience with this guy.
Yeah.
So he's already on board. He's already on board. I'm going to take everything. Oh, he believes in me? Yeah, I'm going to do it. And then he goes a little too far.
He actually robs some people.
Well, he starts digging into people's wallets, and he's gonna rob them.
Yeah.
Before Gloria catches him. And his excuse is, and I do believe Thomas at this point, which at this moment, which is, I was going to put him back when we left. I was just really into character. But it's weird that he broke the fourth wall, right? Because these aren't the characters' clothes. These are the actors' clothes. Or clothes and wallets and everything. Also, that's why you'll never see me putting my wallets in a group file with anyone.
And I think that brings a good stylistic choice that probably is a part of how we understand the text as well, is we see the projected fantasy of the performance a lot of the time.
Yeah.
We will see the bald actor with a full head of hair because he's playing a full head of hair character.
That's how he's playing himself.
Yeah.
Which is really funny to think, like, only with a full head of hair can you believe someone has confidence.
Yes.
But that is how he sees it. So it's wild. Sorry, you want to keep going? Because I really want to talk about that wallet scene real quick.
Yeah, please.
Let's talk. I think that hints, because that moment, right, where he breaks kind of the wall, realizing it wasn't there, but he broke it anyway, is already, I think that's the moment, right? That's the moment where it all kind of begins for him blending his reality and questioning who he is. Because he was digging through through their coats and getting their wallets.
Right.
That does make him insecure.
Yeah.
Because why would he do that? Yeah, you could argue was the character. The character didn't know those wallets and coats were there. Thomas did. So that's where that becomes that versus, I just made a bad choice and I went too far for an acting scene. But it is that, like, it is a good moment to show, like, oh yeah, no, he's taken a turn. He's gone around a corner at this point.
Okay. I want to hear what Nick has to say about that.
Absolutely.
Just because. Well, I also want to hear what you both think of as. Let's do Thomas as a character, and then let's move into John possibly. Just because I'm thinking about all the weird developments where, for example, after the second class, I think Thomas refuses to get naked anymore for the drawing class.
Yes.
And he says, "I don't feel comfortable doing it."
So you know what, Ian? That actually leads into my question for you guys for the rest of this podcast, because we have hit almost the 40-minute mark, believe it or not.
Oh dang!
Which is, I know, crazy. Which is, I think we should give a quick summary of what the book is, of like what happens in the book, right? Very quick. We don't have to do analysis, and then we can choose what characters we want to talk about, because I think that's how we should be doing this.
I agree.
So real quick, Nick, me and Ian just read it, so we can try to go back and forth and interject with details. But the main plot of it is we got to that first acting class, which was previously suggested. It was a free acting class at a rec center, I believe. After operating hours, as we later find out, John and the janitor are friends.
Yes.
Because the janitor has taken his classes. So now he gets to use that space after they're open, because the owner is cool with it.
Right.
So they take that first one, everyone gets to open up a little. It's very life affirming for all of them. They all enjoy it. Very small things, very basic, like hey, follow this character, follow this line of thought. Second one is that moment where they all have to play a prolonged skit as characters, which is actually very hard for anyone who's done acting. It's kind of amazing that these regular people with no acting experience, but also maybe makes sense if they've never had acting experience, can just fall into it. But we'll get into maybe why later.
Okay.
So we get that, and that's where we have moments outside where, no, we didn't feel good. Their reality and the characters have started to blend. There's moments between characters where they dig at each other using real life events, saying it's fuel for the character, which is weird because, again, the character doesn't know that any of that shit happens, nor has relations with the regular people outside of it.
Yes. The novel kind of wrestles the whole time, even from lesson 1, between how much of this is an act, and how much of this is people just kind of presenting themselves with the veneer of, it's a character choice.
Yes.
How much of this feels authentic and genuine, and that's one of the. I mean, it's with Thomas, it's very scary, but with some of the other ones, it's like a question of, okay, so is this coming from you? Is this just a choice? Is this how you really feel? Yeah.
So, and I think, sorry,
because we're still trying to just plow through the plot real
quick
before we get into analysis. Unless Nick, you have something to say about the plot.
Well, I was gonna say, this is all just at least the way the reason why it's going the way it does, you find out, is because they're all being emotionally broken down.
Yes, but we'll get to it. We're jumping ahead a little bit.
Yeah.
So we do that second night. People are like we're mentioning, you're starting to see their walls break down. Their hold on reality, as well as how they perceive themselves, is being broken down. And just these little ways. Thomas can no longer pose nude, even though he was so comfortable in his own skin when you first meet him. Very tough things going on with the kids. Angel is just missing
for days and days at a time.
Things are going rough at both Daniela's and the wife's
Beth.
job. No, there's Daniela's a different character.
Yeah, there's
she's
Daniela,
the one that's fired for physical therapy.
Yes, who cracked that guy real hard.
Yeah.
Who
may or may not have deserved it. Who are we to judge? Who am I to say? And
and then granddaughter. Just to say, and granddaughter Beth, when she's alone with her grandmother, starts seeming to have conversations that are non sequiturs, just saying things that are divorced from the reality that they're in at that moment. So it's very frightening for Gloria.
So then we get into the next acting class, which happens to take place in the janitor's house, the front of the house.
Yes.
As they play another prolonged skit where everyone kind of goes off their adventures, and they realize they've been doing this skit for hours.
5 hours at least? Yeah.
Something crazy. Up to 3 a.m., very much later than any of them wanted to.
Yes.
And breaks into the real life schedule, which is what causes them to leave. So then we find out, are any of them going to come back? And they all do. And then they play another one as they play another really prolonged one. This one, the longest by far for everyone, having little different adventures where they eventually all meet up and get into a van with John. Both
who explains
in reality and
the game.
And the game. Which go ahead, Ian. Explain.
And then John explains to them, well, we've got some more high-level acting classes, but these do cost money. I think he says something like, I know some of you don't have jobs right now, so we'll figure out how you'll pay later. Which
makes that janitor line make a lot more sense.
Yeah.
For him. And then, we get to denouements, which really we can talk about the characters. We get that, but that's more or less the story. We're watching people being, as Nick said, emotionally broken down and led into a van through the power of acting classes.
And you get the sickly surprise of, I mean, it's bad enough. It's bad enough, all of that. Like, and I'd love to, I have so many comments, but I'll burn through to, you get that sick surprise of, and here's my other class. We're all going in the van.
That's a great moment.
Oh my
god. Okay, so what I did was just a very, very shallow run through of what the plot is doing, what the plot is.
Yeah.
So now we can finally talk about this shit.
Okay.
So Nick, would you like to go first? Like any characters, scenes, or specific things you want to talk about or discuss? Any questions? Because, not to like necessarily pick on you or anything, but this was your suggestion, so I was wondering if there was something in particular you wanted to talk about.
Yeah, I think if I were to put down a single character that kept me or I think was the most fascinating or the most captivating, was probably, I just think everything to do with the grandmother and
Gloria,
Gloria and her granddaughter.
Yeah.
Beth.
It is such, man. It's kind of crazy because I think
so tragic,
and it's
real tragic,
because this is another thing with Nick Drnaso. He's just really good at those setups of someone's mental being.
Yeah.
And their showing the mental state. So when they all just are laying down in the house, and then you get to the granddaughter, and she's playing Russian roulette with herself.
Yeah.
And she's trying to dare the other to do it.
No.
Or oh, I'm not scared. Trying to psych the other person out.
Yeah. I'm not scared. And then they do it. And then, but it's with herself. Yeah. Fuck, it's hard. Yeah. What do you think that is, Nick?
What do you make of that scene for that character?
Because I think it's beyond suicide. I don't think.
No, I don't think it is.
I don't think it is. But I think that's what it's trying to entice you with, right? With the sign of Russian roulette with yourself.
Yeah, there was one review of it on the Comics Journal that described that a lot of the behavior of the characters are performative social norms. And I feel with the granddaughter, it's a great example of someone who is trying to get through society by performing.
Yeah.
By trying to pass off as normal.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it's she's already, and then when she's in the acting class, it seems like you then start to see her actual state. And then isn't until when they're home and they're away from other people, you see essentially, what appears to be a form of both a psychosis and of a dissociative
disorder.
Disorder, yeah.
Okay, I can see. You know what? That goes along with the scene of when they're driving to that house, right? And she's laughing at something. And I think it's to do with the scene because it's one of those. It's a great. He lines that moment up so well because it can both be. And I wish I remember exactly, but I remember the feeling, which is this could both be a joke or not, depending on depending on whether or not you find it funny. I just said exactly to my own thought. That's how genius I think this moment. No, but it's whether this moment is funny or not, depending on just simply if you find it funny. But Beth laughs. No one else laughs, and then they go, "Why are you laughing?" And then she goes, "Oh, it's something I thought about. It wouldn't make sense."
Yeah.
And that is a very it's a small thing, but that is what that has happened to me where it's I'm laughing at an old thing that I thought about. And then it's well, I'm not going to tell all these people or try to explain because it's You know,
I've gone through a whole garden path of my mind to get here. Yeah.
And if it's not funny, they're not going to find it funny. But I found it funny, and that's going to be weird because that means two things. One, why did you waste all our time? And then two, well, we don't share the same sense of humor. Why should we talk? And it's that kind of like Dark Thought, like type of thing. But it's a really interesting moment. But I think you're right, Nick, because that is her trying to mask or like pass off as normal, right? Versus, when she's in the acting class, she says she thoroughly enjoys it, looks forward to it every week.
Yeah.
It's helping her. And like, it's a weird danger, and you totally kind of get what Gloria's like conflict with that is, which is this looks like it's doing good for her, but everything else I'm seeing is such a red flag.
Yeah.
It is such a bad thing. And and here's the weird the whole fucked up thing with it is that Gloria's right. Except for the part that Beth is benefiting from this. So instead of like going, okay, maybe not all acting classes are bad. She has to make that choice of like, and you can kind of see the line of thought. I'm getting old. I'm not going to be able to take care of her anymore. At some point, it's just becoming too much for me, both physically, mentally.
Yeah.
And it's all me. Instead of seeing that, like, maybe acting classes would be good for her, we just got to find like a real professional, not some dude who
gets free ones after
doesn't seem to have credits. To anything. And just does free shit during the week. So instead of following that line of it, well, maybe a professional one would be good. If we got a one-on-one and we like really manage it, right?
Yeah.
That's a lot of work. You know, it's easy putting someone away.
Yeah.
To not think about.
Yeah.
And you get that really fucking sad scene at the end. It's so, man, he has to add it. Like, and that's the scene I keep thinking about towards the end is with Beth. Which is you have to see her in the mental, like in a hospice. And it's fucking rough. Because she's talking about trying to get someone on an investment opportunity. Which I think is reflective also of just what they went through. And which makes me think Beth actually does see the truth, because I think she's the only one that does. Which is, this was all a fucking scam.
And actually, I really want to throw in here, because there's so many great thoughts I'm having while you're saying this, is like John Smith is very good at playing innocuous through most of the story. He's very good that even when, as you say, there are plenty of red flags he has. There are plenty of things he says and does that are like concerning. But I, maybe I'm a dope. It really was not until Beth and Gloria has to remove Beth from the very last acting class, and she says, ostensibly, the fuck is wrong with you? Do you not see what's going on right now? This is not good. She's having a bad time. We can't keep doing this. And him kind of holding that neutral tone that he's had through basically everything that happens of, well, I don't like telling people what they, should or shouldn't do, really. If she seems to be enjoying herself, why would I stop her?
It sticks with his methods, man.
Which
is to have them naturally. The best way to get someone into a cult or into like warping their sense of reality is to make them believe they reached on their own, right? I know I feel like that I just quoted the movie like Inception or some shit, but that is like a real psychology thing. Is people have to find things on their own.
It's a thing in academics too, where like they'll tell you, don't just tell people things. If it's better if they, feel like they got there.
Although I will tell you, Ian, that's becoming a more like newer thing, because when I was going in, or at least when I was in high school, the academic English thing was like, the American thing is to tell them up front what the theory is, and then you just spend the rest of the time trying to prove them. Which we would later find. Which once I got into college, I realized, Oh, my high school teachers were working on some old shit because no one does that. No writer worth their salt does that shit anymore. But yeah, it is to make them. It's why like storytelling and like any type of entertainment feels like a magic trick to some people.
Mm-hmm.
It's like there's that sense of like you showed me all this, but it feels like I had always known it.
Yeah,
I just come to connect and realize it through your thing. Yeah. And then where the truth could actually be, oh no, that never fucking crossed your mind at all. I just happened to bring up the one topic and made you believe.
Yeah.
Right? It's weirdly for as much as we love this stuff, there is like it's why like ethics in this kind of in entertainment media and storytelling, like at least I do, I think should be taken seriously to some extent.
Yeah.
And really well thought about. Not just I don't even mean just like it always has to have a good message or not, because I do not think that's true. Especially if you want to talk about topics that are really fucking hard to discuss and happen in everyday life.
Yeah.
But it should be thought about, like what you're doing, what power you have, right? Over people.
Yeah.
Because it is powerful, man.
Definitely.
It's part of the reason. Okay, here's a weird story. For those, I don't know if I've ever talked about it, Nick and Ian know, I used to do sales. I used to do, well, quote unquote sales. I used to work at a place. I'm not gonna name the name. Where we sold alcohol, right? And after like the holiday, I got hired on to work merchandise. So just like stocking shelves, and it was heavy work because they're it's all bottles, but it was better than like clothes and shit. And then eventually they liked me because I would sell sometimes too to people. They hired me on as a sales, and I used to be really fucking good at it. That was the weird thing. I would come to hate how much I was good at it. And I'm not even tooting my own horn. I mean, like they made me like head of a section after a year.
Oh shit!
I remember that. Yeah,
because after a month, because they were like, he's fucking he's doing numbers. And what it turned out, and they asked me what it was, and I went, well, I don't do the thing they taught me to do for sales. And they go, why? Because I'm like, that doesn't feel personal. That doesn't feel like I wouldn't buy that shit from someone. If I'm going in, most of the time for alcohol, people, like, I'm not alone in the thought of like, I know what I want. I'm gonna go get the thing and I'm gonna leave. And if I don't know, I have a good idea what range I'm gonna go with, and more than likely, I'm just gonna go with, the things I kind of already know or the things I've heard about.
Right.
But if you get someone, the real sell comes from stories. Like, it's that thing of like stories sell, facts tell, stories sell. That's a real thing. And it's like, well, I would tell you all the stories about, the people who made this. I would never talk about the bottle itself unless they asked for tasting, or at least I would give my tasting notes. I wouldn't give whatever they were talking. I would be like, this is what I found, man. Taste buds are different. I would try to be like real grounded and real with them. And I go like, listen, this is what I got out of it. I think it's really worth the price. Don't go for this thing. You're just going to get a single note, or like all you're going to get is a quote unquote smooth, which is like flavor. Then I would tell the story. I would get to know the person, become like friends with some people. And I would have regulars who were way older than me. They were like, yeah, dude, I'm like, whatever you got. So, which was very scary once I thought about it a little bit more. And I hated it. I hated it because it feels like lying to people, and I hate lying. It feels and it feels weird that I'm separating them from their money. Like, as someone who has never had quite a lot. So I left eventually, but I left for a bunch of different reasons. But it's one of those things, man. Like and it wasn't hard. It's not hard to get someone to believe I want to buy something and separate them from their money. Yeah. So imagine what you can do if someone's like really fucking good at it and you need something bigger. And then all of a sudden, and I know this sounds ridiculous, but it's like you start understanding that like it's a lot easier to get people to believe in like cults and stuff. It's that thing of like people are not scammed because they're stupid. People are scammed because they're human. Because the real scammers are not playing off their stupidity. Maybe they are playing off intelligence a little bit. They're playing off something like you not knowing something, but that's not really like signs of stupidity or like lack of intelligence. You just happen to not know something. They play off the emotions you're feeling and like how easily you can manipulate someone in an instant, like in a moment rather than over time.
Yeah, I mean, it's. I absolutely agree. I think that I don't know if you guys recall this. I think there's a scene maybe as early as the first acting class in the book where John, I think, pretty directly gives the game away and says like, "Oh yeah, like free acting classes tend to draw in aimless people who don't know what they're doing with their life, and they just want something to direct them, or they're in a rut." So, and I mean, I think that describes most of these people as either feeling like whatever their life direction is a bad one, or feeling as if they have no direction whatever.
Yeah. At the very least, on some core, they are unhappy with where they're at, and John is selling them the idea that you can be happier with my thing,
and that you can be happier by ostensibly, well, just make up a person you'd rather be, and then
let's just
be
play
that.
A little game. Let's just play little games here. Yeah, it's free. It's free, man. The first hit's free.
Yeah,
you don't have to commit now. Or hey, you only came back because you wanted to. I did not bug you. I did not do all that. He also kind of plays his hand a little bit in that he knows his audience. Because that makes it really feel like, well, looking back on it, he probably tested a bunch of things, and as we find out, he was on like some fucking record, like a Motown thing.
Yes,
which is wild. I'm still like trying to think of like why has it got to be on a vinyl and all that. That she sees his name. Why that particular thing? But it may suggest that he's tested it out. Now he kind of he's thought about it. He's workshopped. He's kind of figured it out. Acting classes are really free. Acting classes at night after work are pretty good for people who aren't happy with their current situations.
Let me dig in even more, because there's a line that I really want to touch on for you guys to talk about, and I think it's related. In one of the in the last acting class, we're with the married guy. His name is Dennis, I think. His wife is Rosie. Is that?
Yeah, I think you got it right. Yeah.
So Dennis, his scene for the last acting class is him basically being a CEO, giving like a motivational speech, like we're starting business here and here and here, da 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 da. And we had just kind of come back from the comment of a lot of these scenes are really negative. Have you noticed? Maybe I just want to do something positive.
Yeah.
But at the end of that scene, so we've seen John kind of interrupt these scenes just as just himself appearing, and his exchange with Dennis after he's done this scene is, what do you think of the scene? And he says something like, "It's good, but I think you have work left to do. You've still got space." And I think that's him acknowledging, oh, Dennis is not going to be as compliant as the other ones. So I don't think he's ready, or he's not entirely bought in, because
go ahead.
Because then his wife gets in the car and is like, "Yeah, sorry, I gotta get in the van."
I have a different interpretation of that scene, but I want to hear Nick's thought on it.
Yeah.
Nick, what do you think of that scene?
No, I mean, like, that whole scene is. I think that's especially with sort of how that then plays out. It's just, man, it then like really cements that disturbing factor with it, and I felt like, you kind of, I would say that scene, and then the whole thing with Neil, the ball guy, his development, those two were like the ones I think really nailed just like the whole masking thing, and like Chris talked about, in regards to avoiding like certain things, or like these sessions like are meant to explore and like take advantage of a vulnerability.
Yeah.
And it's just and to me that's like the coolest part. Yeah.
Okay. You mind if I tell you my interpretation of that scene?
Oh, sure. Please.
Oh, thank God! I thought we'd have I thought we wouldn't have a podcast. No. Okay, so he gives a speech, right? He does the thing. He has to improvise a speech. A bunch of people's worst nightmares, essentially. And he does the oldest trick in the book in that he says nothing. There's no value in that speech other than emotion. There's no content. There's nothing. He's just naming cities. He's saying, hey, we're thinking about expanding into there. That's a good sign. Without showing numbers, without naming anything, without naming people, without just saying, hey, our team has worked hard to do that. And it sounds good on paper, but there's nothing there. He's saying nothing. He's improvising a thing. And they all applaud him. They all give him a good job. And that's obviously like in his own head.
Yeah.
Because he did he did a thing and people applaud him and now he feels good.
Yeah.
It's what he wants, I think. He doesn't want and I think we get into the core of his like character in that his wife, I'm forgetting her name, wants substance in their relationship. She wants more. She wants to get on a deeper thing.
Yeah.
He does not, as we kind of find out. Like, he really wants it to be easygoing.
Yeah.
And like, hey, why can't we just have fun and do things without, really thinking about shit?
Yeah.
Yeah. So we get to he applauds everything. That's how I interpret that. John gives that line you just said, where I think you need work to do, which comes off as two things. One, that is a very acting thing.
Yeah.
But two, it's also a business thing. I've heard that in like for businesses and people trying to like improve and everything. It's just a common tactic when you're mentoring someone.
Yeah.
Which is to keep them on the line.
Yeah.
Because if he had said, perfect, there's nothing else I can teach you, that is absolutely the wrong move. Because that, in the sense of, there is nothing I can hook him on with anymore. I have to keep slowly boiling the frog, slowly reel him in. And he still has those insecurities, so it's easy. It's easy to just suggest, hey, you need a little bit more work. He's not insulting him.
Yeah.
But he is playing off those insecurities and manipulating him. It's much darker in that sense. Like, I would rather you tell me I did a bad job that one. It's way easier for me to wrap my head I did a bad performance than oh my god, at my core, I need to keep going.
You gotta keep digging.
That's the life-changing shit. So I would actually argue he's hook, line, and sinker. Because John knows exactly what to move in order to get him into the van,
True.
And I think that's kind of like the points you see with all those little endings with John, is you see how good at he is at manipulating each person. Because Angel, he says, oh, I think you're perfect. Like, you've taken
one of my best pupils. Yeah.
One of my best pupils. I don't think there's as much I can teach you. But if you want to stay, if you want to keep going with it, let's keep going with it. See where this journey takes you. And that's exactly what she needs to hear.
Yeah.
She needs someone to tell her, you are a good person. Or not only are you a good person, you're interesting. You have a talent.
And your instincts are good.
Perfect.
Yeah.
They're fascinating. You have that spark.
Yeah.
So let's keep going. Because she wants to keep going.
Yeah.
There's no way she doesn't.
Yeah.
So it's all those nice little things.
Yeah.
Okay, so we did hit the hour mark, but we can keep going for a little bit.
Yeah.
Any other characters we want to discuss? I feel like I talked a little bit too much. But...
Is Nick? Do you wanted to talk about Neil or one of those other characters that you had brought up as being particularly interesting? I'm thinking of some of them. Yeah.
That's so fucking mean. We know him as the bald one, but he also part of his identity is I'm the bald one. Like he's the one naming himself as like I'm bald, and that's not what confident people have. They have curly hair.
So if Beth's
which I felt particularly targeted by. Anyway, go ahead, Nick.
I mean, like if Beth's and
Gloria.
the whole relation and Gloria. Thank you.
Yeah.
Sorry, getting a call right now. Never mind. You can go ahead.
Oh, okay.
Sorry, my bad.
Well, I'll talk about the character that I think really stood out to me and I was very curious about, which was Thomas, the life model.
Yeah.
I'm thinking about it as him having had the security of his identity taken from him. Ultimately, he struck me as a kind of well-balanced guy beforehand. And then we kind of strip him down from, it's not just that they put into his mind that he's violent. They even put into his mind specific real people in the real world he has enacted violence against. Like, so people he has
met.
Who's never met.
Or that he doesn't know.
He feels enough so that he feels the need to, like, hey, we good, guy? I'm sorry. To a total stranger.
Yeah. To some dude he sees in the park every day, but he's never had a conversation with. And the guy in the park who plays an Elvis impersonator or something, which is wild. That's wild. Is like, yeah, man, I don't know. Who are you? And like,
yeah.
And then he even says the name, like he calls him by the name in the fantasy. And he goes, I don't know what you're talking about. My name is like, I don't know, Dennis or something.
Right. Exactly. Yeah. It's a wild build, and then at the end of it, this is my interpretation at least. I'm thinking even more specifically, like, John Smith is not just looking for marks, he's looking for a coterie. He's looking for, how am I going to be able to use these people for different purposes? That's the sense I get from his relationship with the janitor. Like,
as resources. Yeah.
He's close to the janitor because he gets a place to live.
It's the fucking Scientology thing, right? You get celebrities.
Exactly.
Not because you have another follower, but also they can get a bunch of followers. They have money. They'll let you on set while you're filming with Steven Spielberg. And Steven Spielberg will come on the next day and fucking yell at you and promise not to ever make a movie. And he doesn't.
Yep.
With that one person. For those who don't know what I'm talking about, just go look up Tom Cruise and Steven Spielberg thing. Apparently, one of the few times people ever saw Steven Spielberg like lash out.
He's not a yelling guy.
No,
he's not a shouting guy. Yeah,
he already apparently, from what I've read, is that he kind of already know he is meticulous in everything, and especially in editing. But he is just like, okay, we're gonna do this. All right, done. Boom. He's a professional, and that's that's what people want. That must have known that shit's crazy. Anyway, but I think you're right, Ian. You're trying to get people. Part of scouting is to figure out what you can do with them, right? Although I would also kind of argue, like, he probably just is very creative, because there's no way he can actually pick out stuff, but he knows which ones he wants to hold on to. So you got to try harder a little bit.
Well, so my idea about why he chose this role for Thomas, I think ultimately, in my opinion, is exactly like you said. It's gaining resources. He saw the tallest person in class, who's like Thomas is like 6'6". I think he towers over everybody, and he's like, oh, okay, I'll need a muscle eventually, someone I can actually get to do something for me. I'm going to make sure first to break him down so he knows that's what he's for, is stealing and clobbering people. Like, and so you get that really troubling scene from the second class where Thomas is basically harassed by like a townie.
Yeah.
Who runs into his room and Thomas and assaults Thomas in his bed, and so he strangles him and then gets arrested. It goes on and on. It like there were many points where I was like, okay, is the scene gonna stop now? Okay, scene's gonna stop now.
It also feels the most like a movie.
Yeah.
Does that make sense? Like it feels like because there's tropes going on. There's things going out. It seems like he watched a movie and like now is living it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So I will. Sorry for interrupting, but I will say this for my take on like Thomas, right? Is that since he's fully confident. Well, as far as we know, as far as we're led to believe,
he seemed a very confident person. Yeah.
Which I would argue he probably wasn't.
Yeah.
If like he could be broken down like that, then I think he had to work up to it.
Yeah,
and then
probably
it's easier to bring someone down if they've had to work up to it because it's like they're just returning, or at least maybe it's not hard enough to break them down. But once you do, it's easy to keep them there.
Yeah,
it's like they've already been there. They realize the amount of work it would take to get back to the spot, so it seems way easier.
Yeah.
So I think it's that form of like abuse where like you just have to keep making them do bad things or tell them they're a bad person.
Yeah.
Even if it's not true, and then they'll believe it.
And giving him kind of all the permissions he needs to not really, like in that first one, it's the permission of, that's just an act. You're not really hurting nobody. You're not taking anything from anybody. And then in the second one, it is way more emotionally, I would say, abusive. Like victimizing him. But even murdering someone, he is in the right and is the victim throughout the entire story. Like, you could argue that, okay, that guy was drunk and belligerent, came into someone's room in the middle of the night. Okay, so I'm still somewhat on Thomas's side, but then it continues to go until you get to that last acting class, and it's like, okay, I think Thomas has started to accept, oh no, I am the brute. That's what I'm here to do.
He's kept playing the part. Now he believes it.
Exactly, and that's the case for that person. And that's the case for many of the people who get sucked into the acting classes. Oh no, I am this other, more interesting, more stable, more confident, person who has clear motivations. I
do want to keep talking about that. Excuse me, one more character. But I do have to take a 10-minute break to take care of something.
Oh, okay. No worries, man.
Do you have 10 minutes?
Yeah.
To wait?
Yeah.
Okay, sure. We'll be right back. But for people listening, it won't be any time at all. But
we'll be right back.
We're back.
All right.
Hello.
All right. Sorry for all the interruptions, folks. Let's get into the wife.
Yes.
Who doesn't get on the van at first, but comes back to it. Or at least that's how I interpreted that last few panels.
Where she kind of struggles, she wrestles somewhat with it, but I think she's pretty made up by the time the van pulls up to like, nah, I'm definitely going to do that. And then, he gives her, we have a cat, and you have a job, and we have, all these things, to come back to. But you were alluding earlier, like, the shallowness of her husband is such an issue. And maybe let's also touch on her scene, because I think her scene from acting class 2 is really interesting, actually. It's just her home and her being with her husband and her saying, can't I have anything that's my own? Is this shit just gonna be us the whole time?
It comes off as people who got married really young. Like that type of deal. Like, oh man, hey, we have friends now that have been married really young. Are you guys do you guys have those dark thoughts? You're like, well, it's gonna be weird in 10 years, huh? Because Married young couples do not last most of the time.
It's harder. So certainly harder. Yeah.
It's harder.
Yeah.
It's almost like it's too early. But we'll see. I have high hopes for them if they're listening.
I think you guys are going to beat the odds. Yeah, you guys got
it. No, but it comes off as like they got married early. This is how it's in my head. This isn't said in the book, so like grain of salt, right? They got married early, and it really is that like thing of like, especially when you get married early, you're just hanging out with that one person for a long time. I've also heard the thing of like marriages only last on average 25 years.
Oh, okay.
So, which is interesting. Interesting, your choice. But, yeah, they don't have kids. There's nothing really gluing them together except themselves and quite possibly the fear of loneliness. Which you see in a lot of couples, especially around like my age or like as we get older. That people just stick together because like it sucks being alone. Like once you know what it is. So like it came off as that with them, and she's kind of doing the classic like, I want to go to a lake house with friends, we'll relax, we're away my idea of vacation is away from the city, away from people, but still sticking with a small group of people who I like and may or may not be too attracted to. With the unmarried mom. Actually, I'm pretty sure she is. But like that's my thing.
It's because it's them and Angel end up together on that boat with the baby, right?
Yeah, with the kid.
Yeah.
Which, man, hey, sticking to our beliefs of maybe kids shouldn't be allowed to act.
Yeah. Man, that scene, it was so okay. So that scene, it to me, this isn't maybe as deep as the rest of it, but just briefly, that was us seeing. I think that was us seeing what John is, which is, I'll let this child confront their deepest fear in a room full of strangers. Go for it. Yeah,
and it's that thing of like it comes in the guise of a really good idea. With the scene we're talking about as the kid, like we get to see the monster he's seeing.
It's upsetting,
and it is upsetting, especially in that art style.
Yeah.
And he has that moment where he gets to yell at it, tell it to go away, and overcomes his fear. And it's both a good moment. It's both a moment for him and the mom that seems really positive. And in fact, like I would actually find it really hard to argue that it's not, because he got to confront his fear. It's just that. Go ahead.
I was going to say, and when we see him more throughout the book, and throughout it, he seems at ease. Like he's not nearly as stressed out as he is in just about every other scene. Yeah.
No, he seems more even keel now.
Yeah.
His mom now has a more positive look on him, rather than just some giant monster from that fucking movie, Wrath of the Gods 2.
Yeah.
It's the giant baby. And then like, so he has a more positive outlook, and it seems like, it is a good thing, which is a lot of what trying to convince a person is actually giving them really good things to happen in their life before you take what you need.
And I mean,
it just happens to be, sorry, let me finish this real quick. It happens to be in an environment and with a person who's looking to like use them.
Yeah, absolutely. It's the and to that, like it falls into that at the end of the novel. I was like, it's a cult. Oh, it hits you all at once. It's like, oh yeah, John Smith is a cult leader. This is a cult. And the thing about, we've talked on and off about cults for the last 7 years, guys, but like one of the valuable things that it does have to give you something that makes you feel good, and sometimes it's confronting addiction, and sometimes it's confronting your own anxiety, like with many of these people, and sometimes it's about giving you purpose, which it gives all of the members theoretically. So, I mean, it's feeding something these people are lacking in their lives, and that's the real dark part of it. Is like, yeah, cults will give you a job, and you'll feel like you're doing something productive.
Yeah, you feel like you're contributing to something bigger than yourself, and that's what a lot of people want.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what a lot of people don't feel like they get, especially in like our world.
In our world, you have jobs that feel kind of empty, where you're, I don't know, copying lettering out of a book onto buttons all day, hours and hours on end, and you have to think like, what am I doing with my life? What the fuck is this?
Why am I so stressed out about this one thing? Why are people freaking out about these stupid goddamn fucking buttons?
And then that young lady, basically just quitting. Like, I don't need to do
I've done that. I don't care. And I got bigger fish to fry. Like,
but like it speaks to the character of, was that Dennis? Was that Dennis who works at the button factory? Who is it again? It's
or maybe no, it's Daniela. No, Daniela. Angel. Angel who worked there, and then she left.
Well, who's the man that she's? There's a scene where
it's just some guy.
Oh, okay. There's a scene where
he's the manager. He doesn't leave.
And he can't fucking conceive of it. And I thought that's an amusing scene to me, honestly. Mm-hmm. Like what do you mean? You're not even gonna finish these?
Oh no! When the teenager quits.
Yeah,
that's the wife. Yeah. That's the wife.
Oh, okay.
Who's like, what do you mean? Like, I can't even conceive just leaving.
Yeah,
because she lives in a small world where that's her life. And the teenager has a lot to look forward to. Has bigger things that she's doing. Has priorities that are different. Than her. Which we've all been through if you've had like shitty jobs. So, like,
exactly.
Bad. Yeah, man. So you get that with her. I wanted to ask you guys, do you think she goes back to the van? Because I think she does, but I want to hear what you all think.
What do you think, Nick? I am probably of the opinion more so that she went back. She went for the van, probably.
I feel like that's what that scene's saying.
I mean, yeah, I think I was also kind of leaning towards that. It just seems like after everything, I imagine it would just be her own way of processing it, but then having that awareness, but also still in her own way being drawn in. That's what came across to me.
Yeah. I would. So she's definitely like the most stubborn out of. Well, actually, you could argue Gloria is, because she gets out of it. Even though you deal with her like darker side, she has a handle on it to some degree.
Well,
but not a lot if she's putting Beth through that.
Wait, dude, I totally forgot about one thing about Gloria, where there's a very explicit attempt to manipulate her that fails. Where Gloria is at the janitor's house, and she notes, "Oh, this house is a lot like the house I grew up in."
Yeah.
And then they go to the bathroom, and the bathroom is painted and lit in the same way that her grandparents had kept her restroom. Enough so that she has, like, her scene is just basically a flashback to watching herself as a child live through abuse. But, ultimately John isn't able to take advantage of that, because I would imagine she's processed it. Like, it doesn't come up again. It's something that she has done, but it's not something that other people can weaponize against Gloria.
Okay, hang on. A bunch of things are unlocking for me, because I just interpreted that as coincidences with Okay, so maybe this feels naive now that I'm saying it out loud, but who knows, because I don't think they explicitly say or confirm. But we do know the janitor used to take his classes. In fact, I don't even think he's a real janitor. I think he's acting, because we get John's thing of, like, look at that performance. He's so immersed in the role.
Ballet.
Ballet. So there is that thing of like that could not be his house, like the janitor's house. It's very far back. It's very like there's a kid, there's this wife with migraines. They're all very believable because they're all doing these little things. Although as someone who has migraines, I've never done the thing of like try to be like like to people. I'll just go, oh dude, hang on, I gotta stop talking to you, and then I'll just leave. But I've never done that that she does like to someone. Those could all, I think, oh my god, okay, so those could all just be actors, and John maybe has done, this may be a wild leap, the research on Gloria to try to get her.
Maybe.
And like it's all built up and they're all actors. Oh my god. So I would have to look back in the book and see if they're part of that crowd. Because if they are, then I think that's what that is.
That's worth looking into. Yeah. I say this just because, and this is an interpretation that I got after I went through it the second time. I got to that scene in the bathroom where Gloria relives her trauma as a child. And I was thinking about the article, and we'll talk a little bit about it at the end, that Ari Aster wants to make this a movie with Emma Stone and Joaquin Phoenix starring. And I thought, oh, okay. Like, gaslighting people on a crazy level, that is something Ari Aster is interested in.
Sure is.
Oh, yeah.
Sure is. Okay. Yeah. So, yeah. Just because, okay, I'm going to keep things moving a little bit. Let's talk about, okay, do we want to talk about Lou before we get into, oh my god, I keep forgetting the bald guy's name.
Neil.
Do we want to talk about Lou? Because Lou's a simple man.
What have you to say about Lou? I'll listen.
How dare people get fucking paranoid and mad that this man is trying something new.
Right.
Lives a boring, mundane life. He obviously is going through some stuff. He lives in his brother's, like, underneath the stairs. I think they say he's a vet, like, at some point.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And all he does is constantly work out, go to his job, and then go back.
Yep.
So he doesn't have a lot going on, and it's probably real. And that's a character type that was very much explored in Sabrina. At least different kinds of vets and people who are still working in the army because you don't know what to do after. You spend your years where you would have been like looking to kind of find your purpose, your quote unquote purpose in life, or like what you were meant here to do, doing something, so you never have to worry about it. And then you get home and you're kind of just left to fend for yourself.
Yeah.
Without any like real skills to navigate life.
And to add to that, I'll just say this is anecdotal. This is totally me, just from my own experiences with folks who had served. There's a lot of conversation about like just feeling like you're alien to the culture because not only are you in a totally different culture that maybe probably speaks a different language, you just show up and it's like, well, you missed the last 9 years of TV and movies and music and vernacular and man.
I have a one of the barbers I go to. He was talking to me about that, where it was like, yeah, I know. Oh, so you know what it was, Nick? It was really weird. I think it was right before we went to a gorilla show. I was telling we were going to that. He went, oh yeah, I remember when that band came out. I think that was right before I went into service.
Wow.
And like I came out and they were done, so I never really listened. He missed out on that whole run up into Humans because he was like, I was in service. I fucking I'm still listening to the Pixies and like and stuff.
Yeah.
So and I was like, oh yeah, dude, that is wild how just like isolated you really are from everything. Because again, your life is so down to the minute almost, like strictly mandated.
Yeah.
So he wants kind of that like simple thing. That's how I interpret the dog thing. Where he's like, it's that classic, I wish I was a dog. Just everything seems to make sense. You're happy all the time.
You're happy all the time. You just have to follow instruction.
Yeah. And people aren't judging you or trying to figure out who you are. You're a dog.
And again, I cynically look at it as like, oh, it parallels Thomas in my mind. It's like, oh, well, here's another way I can get the big muscly one. Do as I say, and do not think about why I'm telling. Just obey. You are a dog. Yeah.
And it was exactly what he needed.
Yep.
Like, or what he wanted, actually, not what he needed. That's a very thing about this book is you get what you want, you don't get what you need.
Yeah.
Type thing.
Yeah.
Okay, so for the final character who, oh my god, you guys keep telling me his name.
Neil.
I know you guys wanted to talk about him, so if you guys want to start out.
Please, Nick.
Well, I think Chris brought up a great point in that this is a person that is easily intentionally forgettable.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I feel like, I think I was trying to say a while back was about how with Beth and Gloria, it's Beth masking, and then she's removing that while performing an acting class, and that seems that's just more of a place of her mental well-being and just her state of living. And Neil's is more of a consequence of his actions. Is like he's in denial, and he's avoiding being what
playing
he
himself as a victim.
As a victim, yeah.
And you kind of believe it at the beginning.
Yeah.
Well,
and then you have a very specific confrontation.
I wanted to ask you guys about that because the confrontation to me was just like out of left field. There's nothing that indicates what is about to be said is going to be said, and then you kind of purpose. And then you really have nothing to hang your hat on as far as follow up. We're not talking about it anymore.
That's like life, dude.
But in the context of the novel also, so like it is very clearly real life. This is a real situation, but also there's a degree to which the novel, at least when I was reading it, like it's trying to kind of fuck with you in the way that John is fucking with the crowd, in that you sometimes pause and I'm like, wait, is this a scene? Is this something? Is this a bit? And then you think, well, Neil wouldn't imagine that. I don't think he would imagine that for himself.
Neil wouldn't. Like he wouldn't imagine himself doing his job, like his community service. I think it's definitely real. It is. When it happens, I'm with you. Like you almost kind of believe, like, especially because Nick Drnaso has done stuff in earlier books where people kind of just yell shit, and that's the situation.
Yeah.
And then like to create anxiety in people.
Yeah.
And having to confront something they weren't expecting to confront that day.
Yeah.
And it's like, no, that part's definitely real to me. It's that thing where he gets sucked back into reality. And I'm with Nick. He's playing himself as the victim. He's in denial of his actions because he's always like, it's everyone else. I'm doing my best, and no one's giving me my fucking cookie. Like,
right.
And I hate, as someone who's like, I've talked about this before on the podcast, who's someone who's always kind of like struggled with anger, especially very young. Like, I know that mentality, and that is very real. Where you just keep telling yourself you're the victim in all this, and it's everyone else. It can't possibly be you. In fact, it so much can't be you. People should acknowledge a reward how good of a job you're doing.
Exactly.
Just existing.
It's just as a quick comment, like that attitude within Neil, sadly, is like recognizable as a guy.
It sure is.
And like,
go ahead.
I mean, there are some guys who, I mean, as dark as Neil, or even darker, take that as like I'm the victim. They
never grow out of it.
They never grow out of it. So he can either, and he'll probably go one of two ways, which is, I'm actually the victim. I was set up.
Yeah.
Or, you know what I did wasn't actually that bad, and everyone else is being a real baby about it. You know, those are such common responses. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Which is why it makes like so much sense that he wants to play a cop in his or sheriff specifically, which is very different from a cop if no one knows. The whole sheriff thing's fucked up. Anyway, that's a whole different thing. That he plays the sheriff, and he is specifically going on a power trip over someone who has been like convicted wrongly, because it's very much him going like, now someone can feel how I feel, and I get to be on the other side of the stick.
Yep.
Like essentially. I do believe Neil did that though. There's no way. He did it.
He's a ghoul.
He's not falsely accused, but he's so fucked in his like victimizing that he goes, it still wasn't like, didn't happen that way. People got it all wrong, and if they just saw, they would see how bad they are.
Yeah.
And how awful they are.
Yeah.
It's so fucking fitting that he becomes a cop in that set. That he goes on a power trip.
Yeah.
It's so crazy. Anything else to say about Neil, you guys?
Not from me. You, Nick?
You look good in that hair.
Really did.
The curly hair. It's a young guy with curly hair. Like, did you look like a teenager in like Nick Drnaso's art or something, like, or at least early 20s?
Yeah.
Neil doesn't. Then like
no.
But there's no sympathy for Neil is what I'm getting at for me.
Yeah, fuck that guy.
Because he didn't grow out of it. No. And then he did something very awful, very bad.
Yeah.
Very
yes.
Unforgivable, I would argue, but
I would say. Yeah.
Yeah. So anything else we want to talk about before we get into what we got out of it? Because we should wrap this up. I'm looking at the time. This is going to be one of our longest podcasts yet, if I'm
no, I'm excited to talk about just kind of what we got out of the big themes. Like, I think this is a meaty one. Yeah.
All right,
let's
get into the falling action. What did we get out of it? Let's go with Ian. What did you get out of it?
Well, we touched upon it a little bit, but just to kind of state it plainly, is like the book is a look at behavior in human beings. I think it's really a fascinating study in the ways that people behave, they justify their behavior, and the ways in which people control each other's behavior or influence it in different ways. I think from the very first scene, we're kind of put in mind of like the way that it's framed, like over the shoulder. It's very recognizable to us, and it's this idea of, you know, the parts that we're quote unquote the parts we play in our everyday lives. Who are the characters of us? And the really, you know, wild idea of, well, you know, if you don't like who you are, like there's something uplifting about someone saying, you know, if you don't like who you are, be someone else. Just pick another person and be that. And like there's a not terrible version of that advice.
Yeah, it's genuinely good advice in certain situations.
Yeah. If you're not happy about something, you do have the ability to change it, but in this situation there's like a dark imp who's manipulating it. And I don't know, maybe if we wanted to expand that out, we could say that that's reflective of something in our real lives wherein, yes, we do have control, but there are influences within our personal lives, within our professional, within, you know, think of all the different avenues of your life wherein people will try and tell you, this is the role you're supposed to be playing.
Yeah.
This is who you should be. And the people who are doing that want something from you. Ultimately, that's their purpose, is they want to get something out of you. I think that's something I took away from this book. Yeah.
More true than you think, man. More people always want something, and it's not necessarily like money or anything. It could be as nice as, I want a friendship out of this. That is what I get out of that. It's the problem of viewing relationships as transactional, right?
Yeah.
And when I say that, people always think like, well, then like monetary gain or something. I mean, like, no, it could be as simple as I would just want a friend.
Yeah.
And I want that. And maybe it's not a bad thing. Maybe it is. I think when you view it as I need to get something out of this, that's when it's the problem. Versus like, well, we didn't get what we wanted, so maybe that's fine. Or like, we could just all move on. Like, things aren't going to work out like how I want them to.
Yeah.
And I think that's a healthier viewpoint.
Yeah.
But anyway, before I get into what Nick, do you want to say what you got out of it next, or
do you want to go
last?
Sure. I'll just go right now. Life is an acting class. Go, Chris.
Yeah. Life is lies and fiction mixed with reality.
It's real until it isn't, and then it is.
It's real until it isn't, and then it is real again.
This book has some Puss in Boots vibes, doesn't it? Like,
yeah, it does.
Yeah.
How far can we push a lie?
It's not a new topic.
No.
We would be kidding ourselves if we said it was.
It's
as long as acting has been real.
Yeah.
Or has been a thing. As when the first caveman played pretend. And we didn't know, and we were like, is this a bit? Because we immediately knew what a bit was.
When G was in the water and he pretended that thing got his leg, and we all were real scared about it, it taught us a lesson about acting.
When that fish walked on land and went JK, it was a bit. We all
I can't go back.
Yeah, I can't go back now, though. Didn't realize that was going to happen.
You commit to the bit so hard, you make nuclear weapons.
Nick, we can add the addendum to that old saying is it's all where like anything happens, we can just go, and it's all because of fish got real brave one day. We can now make it to, and it's all because a fish really wanted to commit to the bit.
Too big for the ocean, huh? Hot stuff.
You can argue.
Can have it all.
You can argue that's our inciting incident of evolution.
Damn.
I love
okay, life's an acting class. There's a lot to this book. There's a lot. I don't think it's just one thing.
I agree.
That's trying to get at. There's way too many character deep dives, pieces to say it's one thing. I think one of the bigger things is something I talked about, which is the best lie is one mixed with truth. I mean, these are all like, if I'm thinking of a bunch of like old sayings, the best lie is the one mixed with truth. The best way to convince someone or to change a person's mind is to convince them they thought of it.
Yep.
And excuse me. And what was the? Oh my God! What was the best way? And then, fuck! I can't remember the third thing. Anyway, and we get in that like people. Oh, people are not scammed or manipulated because they're dumb. They are scammed or manipulated because they are human.
Yeah.
And that everyone's emotions is way more. Everyone is way weak, like quote unquote weaker. They're way more easy to manipulate than you think. As long as you know what the insecurities are.
Yeah.
And there's also a little bit of like reality and fiction can never be truly separate.
Yeah.
As long as real people are part of the equation. Right.
They're drawing from something. Yeah.
Yeah. Everything is being drawn for something. Acting is not just, it is playing pretend, but it's never 100% pretend because that person has to have lived a life.
Yeah.
In order to be a really convincing actor.
No.
And then once you get that, you start to think of, well, then where's the fiction?
Yeah.
So I think of like, okay, you know how like this may be more pertinent to Ian, but I'm sure Nick has seen this, where like someone convinces themselves they're a bad person. And it's because they keep telling themselves that. Maybe other people are telling them that too, but they keep telling themselves that. As we see with the model
Thomas.
Thomas.
Yeah.
People keep telling themselves they're a bad person, to the point where like they start believing it.
Yeah.
And they think they are. And maybe at their core they're not. A lot of the times they aren't. Like more people are good than you think when in that mentality.
Yeah.
But they'll do bad things and convince themselves they're a bad person because they're telling themselves that. And they lived it so long that they believe it.
It's the reinforcement principle of, and that's kind of what I was getting at with like the idea of like others telling you what your role is in that way. Like, if I remember the name of the movie, and this will be a 2-sentence aside, but when I was a kid, I had a very weird barber who would talk about old black and white flicks, and he told me about a spy film that was one of his favorites about a man in the 30s who's basically set up by the U.S. government to take the fall for one of their blunders. Okay. So he's wanted, and then the end of the movie is him having this, epic monologue, which was, "I was a good guy. I didn't choose any of this. They made me the villain." So, and then he commits terrorism. He's like turns on the U.S. because like, fuck y'all for doing this to me. Yeah.
It's a grand lie. It's the thing of like real change is going to come from within. And in fact, if change is coming from outer, specifically if someone is telling you to do something or in any way, that's a very slippery slope. That could lead to some crazy bad choices or to being easily manipulated. If you're willing to let yourself go and be directed.
You have to be sure that like what's her face? Like Beth, you have someone externally who is looking out for your better interests. Like, not all of us are, some of us are Angel, and we just fall straight down the hole right away, and we don't have anybody to pull us back.
All right, so let's get into the denouement and then wrap up. What would you all recommend to anyone who enjoyed this or after reading this and all that?
Okay.
Nick, what would you recommend?
Well, I mean, this is such a specific experience that my go-to answer was going to be anything else from Nick Drnaso.
Yeah, I feel like
I think
answer.
Yeah, it is, yeah.
It's a good answer, but it's a good one. As we were saying at the top of the podcast.
On top of totally. I think for like a lot of that very unnerving sort of experience, film wise, I probably recommend like a classic of disturbing movie, which would be Happiness by by Schultz. It is a dark comedy. It is considered one of the most disturbing movies. I think it's it is disturbing, but it's also like, I think it's a really important film for a certain subject matter. I'll leave it at that. So I think I would recommend Happiness.
Got it. All right, Ian, what would you recommend?
I've got 2 recommends. I'll go quick. One is a black comedy also that has, I think, writing like a prose style that approaches what the author of this work has touched upon. It's White Noise from 2022, based on the Don DeLillo novel.
Got it.
It was written and directed by Noah Baumbach from Barbie, guys. But White Noise is the story of Adam Driver as a professor of Hitler studies at college, not World War II, not Nazism, Hitler studies. And it's a very interesting novel about how language is used to kind of remove us from reality, how language is used to tie us closer to the fantasies or lies that we want to be the case. And it's also the novel where the band Airborne Toxic Event takes its name. So that's cool. So that's a great one. I think that was a Netflix picture, and it's a fairly good adaptation of the novel. I would recommend you read the novel also, guys. White Noise is a really good book. but we get great prose, I think, that feel very not necessarily incredibly naturalistic, but there's that quality of we're as a second party observing, and we're not getting anything internal to flesh that out with, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
And then for basically the exact same reason, if you haven't watched Mad Men, holy shit, it's such a good it's such a good character study in that characters do not announce how they feel, and you can basically spend like a whole season just studying one of the characters and watching them live out a year of the 1960s. And there's just so many fascinating, interesting dynamics of watching how these characters interact with each other. So that one. What about you, man?
I agree. I'm gonna make this real quick. I have to use the bathroom real bad.
Sure.
I'm gonna go out of left field. I'm gonna recommend Recreators, the anime.
Ooh, okay.
In the sense that, like, you get to see people. If you want something a little bit different, but in the same lines of like discussion, you get to see fictional characters confront their directors and writers, and see why they put them through the things they did, and having the writers and actors really mull over, why did I do that, or like why would, when fictional character, with the blurring of reality and fiction, right? When they're, if we view them as real people, oh my god. Like, the fuck's wrong? What kind of god is that? Go check it out. It's a fantastic anime. I know at the time people were like praising it, but I feel like it's kind of gone the wayside. Phenomenal anime. Please go check it out. And with that, we'll wrap this up. The next episode will come out on the 15th of July, and we will be discussing Fast 6.
Yeah.
So ready to watch that. All right. Thank you all. Great recommendation on Nick. This is a fantastic podcast, I think.
Yeah, thank you, Nick. That was really great.
Yeah, no problem. Glad you guys enjoyed it.
Awesome. All right. Take care. Y'all have a good night.
Good night.
See ya.